Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Vuvu, and if you are new on here, please consider pressing that red subscribe button down below and joining the family. If you're an oldie, a member of the fam band, welcome back fam, and thank you for joining me once again. Oh my goodness, I have not done I almost said come read with me. What the hell is that? A Friday reads in such a long time, and as you can see from the cover of this video today, I want to read this darling book, which is The Thing With Zola by Zibu Sithole. I'm reading the first chapter. Obviously this is first chapter Friday, and Zibu Sithole is a South African author, and if you're keen on how that chapter goes, please do stay tuned. So Vena _reads is an amazing book reviewer, also YouTuber. She reviews books on YouTube, and if I'm not mistaken, she also has a blog as well. So please, if for your connection with literature, get in touch with or follow at VUVUVENA_reads. She is based in South Africa, and I think it is also extremely important to follow literary content creators who are based outside of the West and in continental Africa, because they do a really good job of bridging the gap.
We appreciate you, Vuvu, for bringing us Turning Pages and for bringing us your BookTube channel.
You know, this is a chance for people to actually see some people that I really enjoy.
Please consider pressing the red subscribe button down below, and if you are returning, welcome back fam.
Vuvu, you're amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
So first, a moment for the cover. A moment for the cover. The city, Johannesburg skyline. You can see that this is some feisty woman, right? Red lips, big hair, brown skin, you know, like it's giving that you also want to know what the thing is with her, and clearly she must be Zola. This is Zibu Sithole's debut. This is what she looks like. And it says Zibu Sithole lives in Johannesburg with her son. She is a journalist with more than 10 years of experience writing for television and radio, as well as print and digital media. She is a published ghostwriter of many romance novels. The Thing With Zola is Zibu's first novel published under her own name. Ooh. Okay, so Lorraine Sithole gives praise for this book and says, I loved every minute of this book. A delightfully complicated story of starting afresh, self-discovery, and finding love that is just right for you. The synopsis, therefore, reads: 29-year-old Zola has spent the past 10 years working and studying in Europe, thanks to a series of high school bursaries and opportunities that allowed her to escape the hardships of South Africa. But when her visa finally expires and there are no further prospects in sight, she has no choice but to leave behind her life, lover, and the dreams she had begun to build in Germany and return home to an uncertain future. The Thing With Zola is a humorous and sexy beach read about a young woman navigating the working world, family, politics, and an unexpected office romance, all while trying to figure out her place in a country that no longer feels like home. Basically, it's complicated. That's what they're saying. And so my favorite thing just off the bat about this book when I first saw it was definitely the cover. And I want to say that besides the whole thing that has been shown on here, right, this urban woman or metropolitan woman, black woman as it seems, it's also the color. It's so vibrant, it's so alive, it's so inviting. It's like, come consume me. Okay, you guys get what I'm saying. I absolutely loved it. So she's got a quote. She starts the book with a Nigerian quote, which quote of a proverb, which I found very interesting. It says, even as the archer loves the arrow that flies, so too he loves the bow that remains constant in his hands. Okay, show me. So Chapter 1 is titled African Time. Zola tapped lightly on her head. It was all she could do not to rip off her wig and dig her carefully manicured nails into her scalp. The heat was stifling and the long strands of hair that floated across her face were annoying her. Her interviewer was late. Typical, she thought, her resentment growing with every minute, as if reacquainting herself with life back in South Africa wasn't enough. Now the waiting in this oppressive heat. Her friends in Germany had always joked about African time, but it was even less funny in 35 degrees. It was just over an hour since she'd sat down at the table, and although technically she'd been early for the appointment, having given herself a cushion to mitigate taxi queues and traffic, in her books Mbali Tabete was now officially late. Zola had only received one response after weeks of searching for vacancies across a range of industries and then sending out her resume and writing flowery covering letters. It was from Mbali Tabete, who'd suggested they meet for an interview at an upmarket coffee shop. Zola had readily agreed. She wasn't fussy. All she wanted was a job, something to do while she planned her next move. But now Mbali was a no-show and Zola was seething. In the hour that she'd been sitting there, the only people who'd noticed her were a couple of pot-bellied men who seemed to have nothing better to do than to leer at women in coffee shops all day. 5 minutes earlier, an arrogant young charmer who must be all the rage where he's from had walked towards her table and smiled with recognition, his bald head gleaming and his muscled arms straining at the arms of a tailored suit. He'd even had the gall to pull up a chair and sit across from her. Creep. Zola had looked him up and down, her nostrils flaring. It was beyond her. His shining white teeth, perfectly straight, would usually have impressed her, but his presumption at this critical moment in her life churned her stomach. The guy clearly had no idea who he was messing with. The twist of his lips as he started to speak was just the sign Zola needed to grab her bag and leave. With a long click of her tongue that left the roof of her mouth ringing, she'd actually forgotten she could do that. Zola had stalked away from the table and found the waitress to pay for her coke. Great, Zola mumbled now as she sashayed out of the coffee shop. Another wasted taxi trip, all in her favorite stilettos. Tears burned behind her eyes, and all she could think was that this wouldn't have happened in Germany. None of this had been part of her plan. The expired visa, lack of work permit, nothing more to study, and every job application rejection that had followed. When Zola had first been accepted into the university scheme in Germany 10 years ago, she'd been so excited. She'd carefully chosen her high school subjects and even her extracurricular activities and kept up her grades to make sure she'd get in. And now it was over. She was out. It had never even crossed her mind that she'd have to come home. She hadn't made any plans to leave Germany and had even avoided visiting her family so that everyone could get used to the idea that she had a new home. And now here she was, hobbling towards the taxi rank like she'd never left Josie. Her German friends, her boyfriend, her favorite restaurant, the coffee shop she loved around the corner from her chic city apartment in Munich, all of it might as well be a fantasy. And her glowing recommendations and sterling distinctions seemed to be no help at all. In fact, she was convinced they were holding her back. She was overqualified, her dreams too big for the small place she occupied in the world, and she didn't know how to make herself any smaller. She ground her teeth and catwalked her way through the burning pain in her feet, her arches feeling as if they were about to snap. Still, she refused to walk barefoot with her heels in her hand. She may be down, but pattering barefoot through the streets of Rosebank was well beneath her. The taxi ride home was a blur of disjointed thoughts. She'd sworn to herself that she would never end up back here, though she'd looked forward to a few impactful visits home. Like after getting her first high-paying job, she'd fly in and buy her mother a bigger, better house, fully furnished with all new appliances in a suburb where she wouldn't need to sweep the curb in front of her front door. She'd make another trip home to arrange a quick but glamorous wedding, and she'd come out again to introduce the family to her gorgeous new baby. Yes, she'd had her entire life planned, and with just one visa rejection, it had all fallen apart. Now she was just like one of her many unemployed cousins, reduced to doing housework and chores. Just like that, her rich auntie membership had been cancelled. From Aston Martin dreams to a rickety old taxi, as she transferred coins and crumpled notes over the shoulders of strangers, Zola pulled her head as far back as she could to avoid the passing bottoms of her fellow passengers as they reached their stops. "How was the interview?" Nomsebenzi asked as soon as Zola walked through the door. Zola threw herself onto her mother's lumpy sofa and kicked off her shoes. She heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, her feet were free. With another deep breath, she prepared to rant. "I don't know how women are going to find their place in the corporate world when we continue to undermine each other like this," she huffed. "She was a no-show. Not even a phone call to let me know she wasn't coming." Zola's voice rang with a practiced twang, even in rage. Used to her daughter's ravings, Nomsebenzi didn't respond. Whether she agreed with Zola or not would make no difference. She knew Zola would go on and on. Her voice would get louder as she riled herself up until she was too exhausted to continue. Though she was never actually out of words, Zola was never short of words. It wasn't so much that Nomsebenzi had nothing to say, just that she knew Zola wouldn't hear her, not in her current mood. No. So Nomsebenzi had just nodded her head, working her fingers around the potato she was diligently peeling. She had known from Zola's first cries that her daughter would be hard to satisfy, that the simple life she could offer her on her cashier's salary would never be enough. Zola had always and would always want more, and today she wanted more than to be stood up by her interviewer. "I mean, who the hell does she think she is?" Zola spat, not pausing to let her mother get a word in. "She's running a freaking startup. She doesn't even have a formal office yet, and she's already treating people like garbage." Droplets of sweat bubbled onto Zola's forehead, and the hair that this morning had been so carefully arranged around her shoulders now poked at her neck, itching like a cheap scarf. With practiced precision, Zola took off her wig and threw it across the living room, through the open door of her bedroom and onto her bed. "Bali Tabete can go to hell," she shrieked, her twang finally failing her. Zola's younger sister Tobile walked out of their shared bedroom, hiding a small smile. "Bali Tabete?" she asked, scrolling through her phone. "You were going to meet the Bali Tabete." Zola's nose flared as she glared at Tobile. She hadn't missed the suppressed laughter in her voice. "Sis, you know Mbali is a man, right?" Tobile said, passing Zola her battered phone. Through the cracked screen, Zola recognized the grin of the man she had left smiling expectantly at the coffee shop. Mbali Tabete had arrived for their meeting, and he'd been her only hope, the only response she'd received after weeks of fruitless job hunting. "Shit," Zola whispered. And that's the end of chapter 1 of The Thing with Zola. If that does not capture you, I don't know what will. Because for me, reading that chapter really drew me into wanting to know more about Zola and where things will go with this mistaken identity and her job hunt and what Joburg has in store for her, and if she'll forget Munich, Amsterdam at all. Hopefully she does. Germany, where did I say? Germany at all. So for me, it was a very grabbing first chapter. Absolutely enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about the chapter. If you've got no thoughts but you enjoyed this video, drop me a lippy, a red lip, you know, that red lip emoji, kissy red lip emoji, please, just for Zola's sake, and say hi, join the family if you haven't yet. And once again, you guys, I love you so very much for choosing me time and time again. Until next time, bye now.